Pam, how are you? Ready?
Very well. I'm very well. Stambaugh,
Yep.
how are you? Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you very much for joining us in this reset and shift project. This is the shift number 29 so far since we started
Wow.
this idea that we start on was April 15 was the first shift, and we
Wow.
call you guys the shifters. So you are
The
the
shape shift.
agents of change and the agents of shift of the world. So thank you very much, Pam, for your time. I know you're very busy, and I know you have some projects. And I know you work a lot on online, so you must be very busy trying to keep all these people online and not online, but online.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
well,
Very
ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Let me introduce you to Pam. Pam Stambaugh's a very fine lady that I had the opportunity to meet about 10 years ago now.
maybe. Wow. Yes.
Yeah. And we look very young. We look young.
Thank you.
She is the CEO of Accountability Pays, and she's a consultant, a writer, coach, trainer of entrepreneurs and the management levels. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, Pam?
I would love to.
Well,
Thank you very much, Ostap. So I am, I'm actually known as a behavioral change master. In other words, where there's a need for a behavior to shift, and is there a little of that now, then I'm the appropriate choice for that if it has to do with teams and leaders, you might say. There's a lot going on right now, isn't there?
right.
So I have been doing this for 30 years. Right, and I have been the president and founder of Accountability Pays for 30 years, and just this year incorporated because I'm ready to look for my follow-on, look for someone to take my place in the future, and quite excited about that actually. So I'm moving from a lifestyle business to a legacy business.
Okay.
That's what I'm up to, and in my
I think
work,
we have Pam for long. No, we still have Pam for a long time.
we have a long time. So in my work, I am working specifically with. In this time, I've really focused on providing value for leaders who have remote, virtual teams. They're virtual. The team is virtual. Everybody's virtual. And so I've created a Monday midday peer group pep talk that happens at noon every Monday.
Mm-hmm.
And that's on my website. And anybody who's struggling can drop in. It's free. It's a peer group environment. I spend a few minutes with a conversation of someone who is in the field managing. I actually do have an international team, a remote team myself. So I know something about that, but I also have been working internationally for 20 years with the Harrison assessment. So I get how complex, I mean, we're in the VUCA world, right? Volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity. Here it is.
You know, that VUCA word is something that I really like in the last speeches I have done in the last year. I've been putting this VUCA acronym, and to be honest, not a lot of people knows about it.
I know. Well, they do in Europe. They really know about it in
And you know
Europe.
what? Maybe you don't know, but I know that it was performed, or it was actually it was born in the U.S. military university, where they trained the soldiers on Desert Storm war.
Yeah.
How to live in this environment.
Yes.
Repeat that, because people should know what VUCA means. No, VUCA.
Well, they should. I mean, it would be useful. It would be useful to know that. So volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity, that has dropped in on us. We all know it, whether we know how to call it VUCA or not, right? It's just here. It's here alive and well, and we are not so much, right? And learning how to pivot. Pivot is the new word, right?
Right.
So, yes, thank you for putting that in the Now, uh, you have that set up to play to all panelists. Is that everybody or all panelists and attendees? Probably,
Yes,
right?
we got 14 people altogether right now.
Yeah, that's great. So I liked how you described what this conversation is going to be, Ostap. I thought it was really a very clever way of describing, let's talk, right? So based on our conversation and based on my understanding of reset and shift, I'm very excited to have this conversation today.
Perfect. So first of all, Pam, is just to address this situation, and the idea is to be an agent of change, an agent of shift, and due to your vast experience in management and in leading all these leaders, if you had a crystal ball in your desk, and you can envision what's going to not what's going to happen, what's going on right now, what's going to be in the next couple of months, and with your expertise, what do you see right now? What's the problem with this situation right now? How do you see that in the US? Some people is going to be in Latin America, some people is going to be the Latino community in the US, even in there's a lot of industries that get involved with all this. How do you see this problem right now?
Well, I think most important is that we frame this conversation correctly so people can walk away with the tidbits that they have. And what I see, and it doesn't matter where you are in the world, what I see is that the first place we need to take a shift, and this is because of my perspective where I'm coming from, is that leaders need to really get in touch with, and if they haven't by now, I would be surprised, the fact that they need a humble heart. Humanity comes first. We need authenticity. We need we need intuition. We need some resources that haven't necessarily been the first choice of leaders. They want systems. They want numbers. They want to see the productivity. They want to be able to measure it and manage it, right? And that doesn't work right now. It hasn't, quite frankly, worked for a while, but it's at emergency proportions enough now that I believe the leaders who haven't already caught that understanding really need to get it right. So I guess I would break my thoughts up into three buckets. The first would be the leaders, and because water flows downhill, and so does culture. So I like to talk about the leaders and what I see. As a matter of fact, I just reminded myself, Bill Gates has a quote, success is a lousy teacher. It seduces smart people into thinking they can't lose. And I think there was quite a bit of that going on. And so we're really confronted by the fact that we don't have the automatic success that was there 2 months ago. So that's why I think the pivot is such a big deal. I'm an authority doesn't work anymore, right? I'm the one you come to for the answers because I don't have the answers. So vulnerability has to be present. And then I want to talk about context, like what's next. And then what about those people that you're trying to get productivity out of while they have kids and pets on their lap?
Right. Good. Yeah. So taking this as an overview of the panorama or the atmosphere that you're envisioning right now, what will be the first thing that they have to? You say something about morality or honesty or
humble heart, vulnerability, humanity, authenticity. Right, intuition, not relying on the numbers. There are no numbers.
That's true leadership, no? That's the real meaning of leadership. At the end of the day, it's not only being. I don't know if you watched the interview that was made last Saturday to Warren Buffett.
I did not. I had it recorded.
It was great. I think. I mean, that's a true meaning of leader. No, I was watching it, and after I finished. Because I came home and it already started. So after I finished, it was repeated and repeated. So I repeated like 4 times. And the guy is the humblest guy that I've seen in many years. I mean, even though he's gonna be 93 years old, 92 years old next in 5 months, he was speaking like with a, I mean, and he say, I'm an easy guy to find. You can find me anywhere. I mean, even though the guy is he's below any means, but the guy was totally humble, the way he speak and the way he addressed to all his teams in Berkshire
Yeah.
Hathaway, which is
Yes. Well, I have a client who's works in GE Healthcare. GE Healthcare's client, and I interviewed her last week, and she said, my team doesn't work for me. I work for my team. My job is to make sure that they have the resources they need. I'm not the SME. I don't have the expertise in what they do, but I can certainly remove their barriers. And I think that's a really good description of effective leadership.
okay. Now that you write a book about women in leadership, I mean, you have all the knowledge to work with many type of leaders, and you choose to work with this pink shoe thing. Tell me about it. Tell me how you think the change with women.
So I was invited to participate as a writer in the book. It's my third. I've got 2 books prior, but they were a long time ago. This one is an aggregate of 14 chapters, each written by a different person. And in fact, it was done in interview style as well. So my chapter is It Takes a Village, which really is true, isn't it? I mean, we're not going to get anything done alone. We never could, but we might have thought we could. And so another hint for effective leadership would be drop the pretense that you can do anything without your team, because you can't, right? I mean, it just isn't possible to move a mountain by yourself. And so my chapter is It Takes a Village. And it really is a story for entrepreneurs. It's not so much focused at the big companies as it is focused on the entrepreneurs. And speaking to them, if you were going to get into business, if you were going to drop your fear and do what you wanted to do, what would it be? Then you would follow some of the advice of some of the women who are in that book. And we're all entrepreneurial owners of businesses. We're all certified women-owned businesses. So that's how we got invited into that opportunity.
That is great. That is great. You know, when we start this project, for some reason, I think I told you that my mind just started thinking in experts and people that can give us good advice. And I don't know why. And honestly, it was not on purpose. But I was thinking in leaders, leaders of opinion. And for some reason, my mind just started writing names in men. And I know there are a lot of women, but maybe they didn't come onto my mind. And there's a Mexican say that there's the Toby's Club. The Toby's Club is where it's like the men's cave, no? This is where all the men hang out, right? And I started receiving a lot of critics, even though that my wife and Marut, my partner, which is in the marketing agency, they both know a lot of women. Even they come up with names of men, right? And I start receiving some critics about it. Say, hey, this is a Toby's Club or what? Say, no. It was not even close to that intention.
Mm-mm.
And then then I saw your book in LinkedIn. I say, Jesus Christ, there's a lot of women in the game. And it's not that amazed me. It's not, but really woman needs to get into the step of this. We had a chat with this lady that she is a young girl, and she is the head of the Entrepreneurial Young Woman Association.
Yeah.
And she was giving some statistics and some numbers about the involvement of women into business, and they still below men in management ranks. But it's increasing. But it shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't be that way.
No, but you know, that I think this is one of the things that will shift in all of this massive shift. because women tend to be more adaptable in some ways.
100%.
Now, because they were managing households. I mean, you can see the pot on the stove and the kid over on the left and right. I mean, the men in the olden days were hunt, bring home the food, right? The laser focus, yes. And the women were the multitaskers. So that some of that still stands today. And I don't fault anyone for that. I really think we need to be more inclusive. And in fact, that's how I got into what I'm doing. But in terms of what our challenge is, I wouldn't call it a problem, although
No,
there are certainly problems associated with this. I would call it a challenge that can be a phenomenal teacher for what we need to do and who we need to be going forward in our world. So if I were to take your lead and sort of go through how you described, right? It just imagine that you had this upheaval or the bucket of water or whatever, and everything is different now. Boom, like that. That's where we are. So that's why I say Bucha is so relevant.
totally.
And because it's always culture runs downhill. I think the leaders are the first part of this conversation because they're the ones that need to get it first, because how they show up matters. And the advice that I would give to a leader is don't pretend everything is fine, because it's not. And everybody knows it and everybody can see through it. So whatever is inauthentic is going to get, ripped off like a Band-Aid on a bad wound, right? Because it doesn't work. And the impact of that has gone on for a lot of years, Jorge, is that the engagement numbers have never been strong. Despite how often we talk about engagement, and despite the number of times that we really work hard as organizations to give employees what they say they want, we still have about a 70% disengaged number year after year after year by the same, 20 years worth, right? So what's the deal? And I would say that there's a lot of what's the deal there. The good that could possibly come out of this is going to require a contextual shift. That cost of the loss of engagement is $450 to $550 billion. And that's in the economy from lost productivity.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and I can see some things about that. We have a Pablo with us.
No, Pablo is part of our team, and he's transmitting this through a Facebook channel. So
okay, great.
He's gonna be there. He's gonna be quiet. He's gonna sit down, and
he's gonna hang here with us.
Don't worry, he won't bite.
All right. So do you want me to just roll with some of the things that I believe?
Sure, please. Actually, this is a space just for that. And if, like I told you, if we had this bucket of water just soak us wet, and now what we're gonna do? I know you just mentioned that leaders has the responsibility to address their teams or the people below them about this is not a new. Thing is going to change. It's going to be a new normal. There's going to be some change that's going to dramatically interfere with our day-to-day thing that we used to do in the past. And we've been talking with leaders. We've been talking to with CEOs and some management people through this talks this late days. And something that I think is that most of the people knows it's going to be a change, but they think it's going to pass very soon. And I believe, like one of the, I have a very good friend that asked that he do expos, right? He do big shows. And he told me, Jorge, this is like, we were going to get into this point of technology and communications and changes, and they just gave us a fast forward. And we just moved from this day, maybe to 4 or 5 years. And maybe we're going to be next month the same way it was going to be in 6, 7 years. Oh, I don't know how many years, but we're already there. And we have to readapt ourselves in the way we communicate, in the way we work very, very fast. And people, I think a lot of people don't believe it.
Well, so that's one of the things that makes it a VUCA world, doesn't it? Right?
Right?
There's
Totally.
all of this, and people automatically and personally want to believe that life will come back to the way they know it, how they could, because they think there's an opportunity to control. That's another lesson: is if you thought you were in control, you now know better.
And I love that you came up with this Bucha thing because I love that concept. I've been teaching that concept, and that is the first person in this time that came up with this idea. So please tell us what you were prepared to tell us.
Sure. So the wave of the future is going to be team. But if you were to think about it, first you have to think about the challenge, and the first challenge is leaders have to know themselves in a way they've never known themselves. They have to get more authentic. They have to be more open. They have to be more people oriented. I can tell you from selling and delivering people for the last many years that it's a very hard sell at the CEO level. Right. So I think that'll get easier. I think the gate is opening. They recognize, oh my gosh, if I don't understand what works for my people, I'm not going to get there, because they're having to now deal with the factor of virtual. The next step of progress.
Deal with the factor of virtual. I like that word, that
Yep.
phrase. Deal with the factor of virtual.
Exactly. Yep. So I think the piece that we need to think about is trust, right? Context is defining, Ostap. Context is defining, and that is the background of our conversation. What we come in with as an attitude or a belief is what drives the show. I mean, I could just say, if you have a teenager, right? If you ever, you too, okay? So it's talk to the hand, right? Yeah, you can talk and talk and talk, but you're dad. And so what you have to say is going in one ear and out the other, right? So that their context is, I'm not listening to you. And so there are choices that we can make about context if we get present to the fact that that's what's running the show. And trust is one of those things that defines whether people are going to be engaged or not engaged. And so I think the next step is to really look at some distinctions that have not been understood in the past. Paradox, for example, a paradox is two seemingly opposites that both actually are true. And we have well, I'll use a quote from Paul Pullman, who was CEO for 10 years of Unilever. And he, during which time the company delivered consistent top and bottom line growth ahead of markets, a total market share return of 290% over 10 years. He said about Paradox, the difference between the average and outstanding firms is an and mentality. We must find and create tensions, force people into different space for thinking. This is not just a performance issue, but a survival issue, because managing paradox helps foster creativity and higher performance. And so I work in the paradox world within the Harrison assessment, which is my tool of choice for dealing with individuals on a one-on-one basis. We measure 12 paradoxical traits. And so we are always explaining that. Now, what happens when you don't have acceptance of paradox is that you get polarity. You get somebody over here on one side or on the other. And that has happened in the United States anyway. I can't speak to any other country, but we've certainly polarized around politics, haven't we? You know, the Democrats have their position, and if you argue with something, you could post it on YouTube or Facebook or Google and have it taken down because it's not in agreement with what they want you to believe, right? I'm saying that out loud because I see it happening. I grew up in Cody, Wyoming, and my neighbors and friends and church members. My father was a minister of the church there, and Senator Al Simpson's father was Senator Millward Simpson. So 2 generations of senators. And a couple of years ago, Larry and I, my husband and I, were back in Cody having dinner with them and a number of other family friends. And he said, you know, when I remember the day when we politicians could disagree by day and then go out to dinner that evening. But that's the trend, is the opposite of what's happening today. And that is called rigidity. And rigidity will not allow us to be like the willow tree to bend. And so some of what I see is that that rigidity is being forced, I hope will be cracked open, because we need the both and I don't care what conversation you're in. If you can't entertain the potential of the rightness of someone else's opinion, you've lost a part of yourself to, it's like a hidden part of yourself, right? We're denying the other part. And so you can literally look. I have a graph from, I think it was the Wall Street Journal. It literally shows from 1980 to 2018, the divide has so been driven apart. So context is defining. And if you don't say, let me listen, let me hear you, what do you need? What are you saying? Where are you coming from? Then we don't have the whole conversation. We have a lecture. We need our introverts and our extroverts equally, right? We need that both and. That's my next step, is to get to servant leadership, get to gratitude, get to perturbation. Do you know the word perturbation, Ostap?
No.
All right, well, the definition is the act of perturbing or the state of being perturbed.
Perturbed.
And, right, perturbed, P-E-R-T-U-R-B-E-D. That involves taking risks, being willing to stand for something other than the status quo, taking actions that are unpredicted, and having uncomfortable conversations to produce a different experience. So in that realm, I invite.
It's like being resilience, no?
What?
It's like being resilience.
Well, yes, I mean, resilience is an inside come back. Perturbation is actually like taking a stick and poking a balloon and pushing at something so that the status quo gets challenged. Okay. Now, we don't have to do that in the VUCA world because the status quo has just been thrown out the window. But there's an opportunity to learn how to have your assumptions challenged. Don't just take what I say as truth. Poke at that, or inviting the dense, difficult conversations and challenges. Identify and invite the signals you may not have previously considered signals, right? Ask better questions, upgrade your A team or your A game, right? Bring your better self by asking, be curious. Curiosity is something huge, right? So
new generations have that.
Yeah.
New generations just challenge everything and everything.
Totally. Yeah. And then the other thing that actually this came from LinkedIn, the senior editor at large in December of 2018. She had a prediction. She said, soft skills require more courage than hard skills. Creativity and so-called soft skills are becoming all the more important because that's what can't be automated. LinkedIn data shows the fastest growing skills gap are related to soft skills. So it's the people, which is where I want to go next, right? It's the people. So how do you improve your business in this moment? Well, how about you had a contest and invited your employees to give you an understanding of what they already know, but you're not asking about, so they're not telling you.
Right.
Right. So another outcome I would like to see is more CEOs being coachable, willing to be open and vulnerable and not know it all already. Right?
I remember some of your words from the book of Leaders Eat Last, the Simon Sinek. You know that book.
Yeah, sure.
It just came out some of those ideas. What do you say?
Totally. So then we get to what is it that has people want to come to work instead of play with their kids and their dogs at home, right? What is it that has them be willing to push through the barriers when the world is just opening up at this moment as of May 7th? And some states are actually letting people go to the beaches. My husband is golfing again, but I can't get in the pool, right? So there's some inequities happening as we unlock from our locked down state.
Right.
But the thing that a leader of any size team would best be served to bring would be empathy, because that's what engenders trust. And trust is only present where people feel safe. So when
And
you
also
look,
where people being challenged, no? Don't you think? I mean, you're the expert here, but as long as you challenge your teams and make them that the success is part of them, was built by them.
sure, that's definitely a part of it, Ostap, no question about it. But when you look at the speed of trust, Stephen M. R. Covey's book, when trust is high, speed is high and cost is low. When trust is low, speed is also low and cost is high. So you have to earn the trust of people. And the latest research is showing that what that takes to get that engagement, to get that trust, to cross that line of, I mean, you can't become somebody's friend. I'm not suggesting that, but you do need to bring empathy. Empathy is is really the new currency, right? Because if people don't feel heard and they are in angst in some way, and a lot of people are there right now, if people don't feel heard, then they don't have the space to take in what you're saying. They just don't have the space. So coming from,
New currency. I like that.
yeah. So you know, we could be in an era where what's possible is to unleash the human potential. And it's really interesting. I mentioned Harrison assessments before, and I've been working with Harrison assessments for 20 years. And of course, it continues to grow and change. But one of the things that they have opened up as a result of COVID is there is something called a career navigator system. People are oftentimes in jobs. Why they're disengaged is because they're working for the money, because there isn't anything else in it for them.
Right.
And they feel stuck. And so now with this release, and people are furloughed and they're laid off and they're rethinking their lives. Well, the Harrison assessment has a career navigator system that is going to be opened up and free for the next 12 months. So
Right.
people can go in there and take a look and see, right? See what they want to do, and really revisit their assumptions about what is it about work that turns them on or makes them motivated or inspires them. I mean, the things that you do in your job that where time disappears are those things that are feeding your soul. And the things that you do in your job where you keep looking at your watch are things that are sucking your energy out of your body,
Right.
right? We know that, but we haven't necessarily operationalized that. And so here's an opportunity to revisit your assumptions.
And that, I think we're getting to a point that I really like about this conversation, is that where we can see this huge door of opportunities, because there's going to be a lot of new ventures, a lot of new projects, and a lot of new startups. They're just going to rise out of this need. So people that is just, I was just looking at the numbers that Jorge Aguaje is a guy from a broker, a real estate broker in San Diego. And he was telling us about the loss of jobs that has been done in the last month. And it was a lot. It was,
It's like 27%, something like that. I mean, that's higher than it was at our worst, right? Because
so
we're an economy that's run by tourism, and when people don't travel and people can't go to restaurants, our whole economy is shut down.
right.
So yeah. So
sometimes we believe that the U.S. is so powerful that we are kind of weak at the end of the day. We're in the line, no? Even though the big power that the United States has, it just can't scramble. I mean, rumble in
well, I think it's hard to draw conclusions and generalizations, but there is definitely a need for a further examination of the kinds of things you're speaking to. There's definitely a need to be more thoughtful, to not be so quick to judge, to not take somebody else's opinion to really look for oneself, right? If you take it from the top down, the leadership has to provide more value that's intrinsic. When engagement is the intersection of, if I'm bringing myself and what I care about, if I'm bringing that to what I want, then I can get fulfillment. But that's got to be a dialogue between a manager and his or her direct report. Now we measure that, but they're just, we haven't seen people jumping up and down to find out what the direct report needs or wants, and what they're bringing to what they need or want. I haven't seen a lot of excitement about that, and that has been available for several years now. And it's, well, we're too busy, we're too this, we're too that, we've got our agenda, da da da. Wait a minute, these are your people here. They're the ones producing your results. What if you slowed down enough to find out what matters to them? And it's probably not even something that is going to cost you money. It's not usually money. Money is like a base driver. It's sort of a given. Like if you're a ball bearing, you better be round. Everybody needs a certain amount of money. That's a given. Beyond that, though, just the discretionary effort comes from people feeling valued or feeling like they're contributing to something greater than themselves. That's where inspiration that's personal comes from. And if you take somebody who wants autonomy, but they aren't inclined to take initiative, what have you got? You've got, I want to be left alone to do what I want to do, but I don't expect me to produce any results, right? So I bring my desire to take initiative, and then I want autonomy. But if I'm working for a micromanager, I'm miserable every single day.
Of course. And don't you think now is going to be a new generation of new type of leadership with all this?
Well, yeah, certainly. But it's like any other continuum, right? Some people are further along in their development toward what is coming for the rest of the people who've been dragging their heels, right? So I don't know that I'm not inclined to throw everybody. I don't like to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I don't want to generalize too much, because I think that's part of the problem that we're having now, is that people think that there's one right answer, and oh my goodness, it's just so much more complex than that. We need to think, we need to ask the right questions, we need to get better at asking questions, we need to have more curiosity about the things that really matter. I just coached a young woman this morning. She doesn't want to be the leader of the organization. She has a technical guy who's really, really good technically, but he does, and I've coached them, and I wanted to see more metrics of, if you're going to progress, you sort of ought to look at the benchmarks along the way. Well, it's 2 months, 3 months later, and she calls me, and she doesn't want to be the leader. He wants to be the leader, but he's not a good leader. I'm like, well, there is a conversation that's not on the table that is the elephant in the room. Right. So, but when it's up close and personal, it's harder to see, isn't it?
Totally agree.
It gets too close, we get the myopia going. So you're poking at the right stuff, right? You're absolutely, with your inquiry, poking at the right stuff. I would not be so arrogant as to suggest I have any answers, but I think it's time to start asking a lot of better questions.
And I think changes in situations like this just gives you the challenge to change. Give you the challenge to change and become a leader, or become not a leader, maybe to lead a new project, to lead a new venture, to change the way things are used to be done.
Yeah.
Example.
Well, if you got an example. I have one too. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, so for example, the thing I was thinking about was that when you look at the structure of an organization, oftentimes it looks like that. You got the leader at the top and then everybody else at the bottom. And then why the leader gets overburdened is because everybody has to go back to the expert, to the person who's in charge, who's got the decision authority. And I talked before about tipping that upside down, but there's another way, which is to make sure that your systems and processes are improving, But how do you get there? You don't make decisions that are executive level decisions in that, but you actually have to make everybody responsible for improving systems. I mean, I'm working with CEO tools, for example, and that's communicate, execute, optimize. That's not CEO in the sense of lead the organization. But if processes drive performance, and then you can trust the people who are responsible for, rather than blaming them, which is how it goes now. If you actually backed up and put them responsible for fixing what went wrong, they would be empowered. They would be bringing their expertise. Right? That would be being an autonomous organization, and then leadership could actually spend their time doing the strategic planning, strategic thinking, looking at the future. It would free them up from all of that micromanaging that they do, or often do. I don't want to throw everybody in the same bucket. I don't mean to do that. But now, what did you see?
No. Like, for example, I was gonna say this concept of reset and shift. This is not my core business. I'm into real estate in construction, in investment, in some of the marketing real estate. This is my core business, and they just came out, no, and there was something that becomes. I know I just heard that they've been putting this reset and shift thing as the biggest summit in America of opinion of experts, and it was just an idea, and this only has 20 days old, and this is a new thing that just came out of the smoke, out of the problem, and become something that gives people hope, and we receive emails from a lot of people saying thank you because we see things differently, because people like you offer them just something that they haven't seen it before because you're an expert in your field. And now,
well, right, but I'm always listening and asking. I don't come. I like to say I like to lead from behind, and I think that's appropriate. Someone from our audience poked in with a little bit of value here. So if you don't mind, I'd like to read what was here. It says, "Great leaders can eloquently manage their team's expectations of them by communicating early and often and admitting that they don't have all the answers." That is absolutely true. That's a key component. Communicate. And that starts with the vision of the leader. So if you don't have agreement of the top people, you don't have a vision. And you can't be going toward a future that you've defined because you haven't defined it. And then it goes on to say, now more than ever as leaders, it's essential to exercise transparency, timely, empathetic, and open communication with employees to foster trust while solidifying leadership capabilities. I couldn't agree more. That's well said. Yeah, you've got some astute listeners out there. Or did you? You didn't. That was from VS, whoever VS is. Thank you.
I don't know.
Yeah. But anyway, you've got a participant there who's actually really engaging, and I love that. Thank you. This is fun.
Well, I hope we can have more people get involved with it. I think you're actually, here's Jorge Aguaque, we had a little chat earlier this morning. I'm sorry. And yes, truly it's a time of change, and I think leadership has to become very flexible right now. And how do you see the actual leaders? They're willing to change, or they have to change? I mean, they're open to this thing, or they're gonna be rigid with this old way of doing things and the way they make them successful. I'm sorry.
It's individual by individual. We're all at the effect of our own choices, aren't we? And so if someone stays rigid, somebody polarizes, then there's a distance that's created, and that will manifest in the ways that it manifests. Businesses are going to go out of business. There are the effects. But I always like to say, don't waste a crisis, right?
No.
Crisis and opportunity are the same word in Chinese so I think we have an opportunity here. I certainly have pivoted to really look at what does it take to work virtually, and I've been using Zoom for a number of years, so this is not a new environment for me. It's one I feel quite comfortable with, actually. So so for me, it's just another day, only more of it, more seat time, not as much driving out there, and not nearly enough pool time. I can tell you, I'm a swimmer.
Right, but don't you think now that this new way of communicating, I mean, this communication way that it has been like for you for quite a time, is gonna change the way of people communicate. Now we just with Pablo, which is right here, he's the guy that put all this project together in skyrocketed. I mean, it just came from nothing to we got more than 5,000 registered people that has been involved with this, and people that are asking. And I was supposed to finish this by May 15 and say, well, why don't we use this as a platform and keep helping people and putting more projects, be a startup and be an agent of change, and leave it to the people so they can use this part. And me myself, I'm going to use it for selling my products and services. But
Totally.
but
Totally.
this
But
invasion, I'm sorry.
go ahead.
No. This invasion of these technologies or this way of communicate are going to confuse a lot of people, because real experts be doing this, like you, for example. You're an expert in the field. You're in your field using this kind. Now everybody becomes an expert, and now everybody wants to go to sell their own stuff through these means, and it's gonna be hard to differentiate. I mean, there's gonna be new people coming out with new technologies, new way of saying, "Hey, I'm here with a different scenario."
But listen,
It's gonna make a difference.
that's what makes America great, is we are innovative, right? That's the
Totally.
differentiator, a very serious differentiator. I don't mind that. By the way, my Monday midday peer group pep talks are free. I'm doing that as a service, and I'm able to give free feedback from the Harrison assessment about whether some virtual leader is. I'll tell them what their suitability is for that work. I can tell them that. I can tell them that about their people if they want to know it. And all of that is being given right now. That is the main. So there's one other differentiator, and it's in the United States. I can't speak to the rest of the world, but I do think that not all countries are as gratitude oriented as the United States. So every night at 8 o'clock in our neighborhood, the fire engines come out and the police engines come out and the lights flicker on and off, and everybody in the neighborhood is acknowledging and giving gratitude for the healthcare workers right now.
That's not happening here in Houston.
It is.
No, I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not in the area I live. I don't know in downtown Houston, but
Well, it actually.
you live in downtown San Diego, remember? No.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
I live in San Diego. Yeah. Yeah. So we are definitely the block where it gets all the attention. No question about that. But it is happening, because I have other friends in other parts but we're congregated, so we can actually do that. Right. We can actually publicly acknowledge the healthcare workers. So all I'm saying is that if somebody wanted to get, and now is a great time to create, something of value and give it away, because what the heck, right? It's out of the gratitude for where we are and what we have, we're able to give something.
That's what we call solidarity.
Yeah.
That's great. That is great. Pam, we got a lot of things to chat with you. You got a lot of knowledge. You got a lot of common sense in what you say, because everything makes sense to me. And if you can add something for this new generations in this type of new leaderships, what you can tell them, what you can tell this centennial generation, how they should manage this situation in your point of view, that you've been working with thousands of companies or individuals.
Well, okay, so I'm gonna go back to the point of the polarity. I think that in the United States, anyway, we're polarizing where it doesn't serve us well. We're being fed a line by the big the Facebooks and and the Googles and the YouTubes. We're being controlled subtly. It's like the boiled frog phenomenon. right? You get in nice warm water and you think, isn't it wonderful? And you love to swim around. Amazon, I mean, that has become a monster, right? I admit I shop there because it's easy, but the easy isn't necessarily the best. It isn't keeping our retail businesses open. It's putting all of the money in the hands of a few. And that is not the principle upon which the United States was built.
I just heard that Neiman Marcus was in chapter 11 this morning.
Yeah, well, it's going to happen more and more. I mean, well, first of all, we can't shop, right? But if they were close enough that a month or two pushed them over the edge, it was coming anyway. It was coming because of the Amazon.coms, and maybe not the only one. Everybody funnels their business through there. That's where you buy my book, right? I'm not resisting it because I'm one individual, but somebody has got to really take a look. I just was the recipient of a number of very serious allegations about how this whole COVID-19 thing is being handled. And I'm really scratching my head over some of what I'm learning now. And I was sent a video by a woman who was, I believe, a virologist. I don't know, I'm not a medical person. And I watched it, and it blew me away. And the next day, somebody said, hey, that post got taken down, right? I mean, it was something that didn't follow the family line. And
Right.
so we're being controlled. You're not being permitted to read things that cause Americans to be, the polarity is the biggest problem.
Not only us here in America, everybody
Yeah,
in the world.
yeah. But I can only speak to my own experience. I'm well traveled, but I know better than to think I'm an expert on any other culture. I don't think it's a cultural thing. I agree with you. I think it's probably widespread. Nonetheless, what I experience here is that the dissonance. If you're a dissident, it's hard to have your voice heard because it's something different, and we all are supposed to follow the family line. And I'm just not there. I think it's disastrous because
I think I share your thinking.
Yeah, thank you.
I share that.
That's
That's
what
the
I
reason I came up with this idea. No, we came up with this idea just because I didn't believe it and I didn't understand what was that line.
Well, that's what I think. If I were to say one thing to the youth, it would be, don't be so stuck in your belief that you aren't listening for value. And I'll give you an example. Not that I'm a Trump fan, but everything that's being proposed over there on that side of the street is now a Trump personality problem. Yeah, Trump's got a personality problem, but that doesn't mean he isn't affecting change that's useful. Right? Not that I agree with everything, not that I think he's a charming man, I certainly don't. But I also don't want to get off the topic and get distracted by the silliness of that. So I just, I guess, I don't do politics either,
Right.
but it's not a political statement. It's just making the point that if you have an opinion of someone, you probably ought to look over here, because usually when we're triggered, it's not that something is over there, it's that we're missing. We have a blind spot. We have an unidentified part of ourselves that we're denying.
Totally agree. And I live in a Republican state, so I just struggle with that every day with all the people.
Yeah, I understand. But the point is that we need both views. And if we ever were to lose the opportunity to have that good, because it's synthesis, antithesis, thesis, antithesis, synthesis. That is a natural flow of things. That's how marriages work. You stop fighting with your wife, you're done.
You don't want to get into that.
I rest my case.
Now let's show the people here your book and tell them where they can buy it. I just put here your information.
Thank you. I also put my website in the chat, accountabilitypays.com, because that's where, if you want to come to the free things and you're a leader and you want anything that we're playing in, it's a peer group. You got to bring something, you got to bring a challenge, you got to bring something of value. And it's quick. It's just a half hour. We're
Well,
in and out of there.
where else people can find you? I know in your website, you're in LinkedIn. Where can the people can address you? Because I think you're a great woman, and you're a woman of change, and you have a lot of value to be learned. And I really respect your work, and I've been your friend for some time, and I think you're doing a great job, Pam, and I really congratulate you.
Well, thank you, Ostap. It's a privilege to be a part of what you're up to, and congratulations. Yes.
No. On the contrary. So here's a Woman in Business. I think it's a great book to read it. I haven't read it, but I'm going to make my order right away.
Very good. Women in Business Leading the Way. There you are.
Woman in Business Leading the Way.
Yeah, we're the Pink Shoe Sisters, the 14 of us.
So it's a 14 private group. More people can join you. More women can be part of it.
Well, this is the chapters are each written by a different woman with a different business and a different bent, but a contribution to make. So my chapter being, it takes a village. We all know that, and that's what I'm about, is team. As a matter of fact, that's what I'm really building, is with my little half hour come in and get fed and share.
Well, I think this is not a feminist thing. I think this is a great way to raise the voice of women in the management line. You say that?
Yeah.
And I think it's something that you should create a big value, and a lot of women will follow you. I'm really sure of it. And if we can help any way or anyhow, please let me know, and we will try to make this big and help you with this thing. And like you say, somebody can keep leading this project, and hopefully become like you say, a real big agent of change.
Well, thank you very much. Pleasure.
Okie doke. So Pam, is there anything else that we can tell other people that we're looking here?
I don't think so, Jorge. I think we had said we would wrap up, and I've got a 4 o'clock, and it's 3:59 on my watch. So
right.
I think.
No, thank you a lot, Pam, for your time and your knowledge. And I know that we can take a lot of out of you.
Thank you very much.
I hope this really puts a big seed and become a real change in the future. And
I hope so too. Yes, let's work on that together.
Okay, well, send you a big kiss. Thank you very much. You can go now. Let me just put a couple of announcements for the people that are here.
Sure.
Quick. And if you have to go, thank you again for your time and your your love.
Thank you very much.
Well, just for the people here, just to show you that next Monday, May 11 at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock Miami time, is gonna be with us Anita Funtek. She is the VP of Desert Development. She's quite a real leader, and she's going to tell us something about the Miami new construction and new development industry right now, and what's going on with Miami. So hopefully I can see you next Monday, and just to thank you, and have a great rest of the day. Have a good day, and hopefully you stay tuned in Reset and Shape for the next following days. Thank you.